Hi students, welcome to VerandaRace. And today we are going to discuss the Hindu editorial for February 2, and it will be a detailed analysis. And let me tell you that all of you who have joined the session will first discuss the vocabulary related to it. Whatever words are there and phrases are there, we'll discuss them first. Just a moment, students. Let me see who have all have joined. It's 8 a.m. The session must have started, I guess. Okay, students, yeah. So let us start the session. You may ask questions in between. Charu Allegra, good morning. Good morning, everyone. So let us start the session without much ado. So let me tell you, we'll first discuss the words related to the editorial. And today I have not created questions, rather I'll focus on the parts of speech, how to identify, and the vocabulary and the phrases given in the passage. So let us start the session. Good morning, Vidya Selvi, everyone, good morning. And yes, let me tell you, the 11 a.m. session, there was some internet disruptions yesterday. That's why we couldn't conduct the yesterday's session of 11 a.m. We'll discuss it today. Don't worry, there won't be any internet problem from today. So I'm sorry for yesterday. For the 11 a.m. session I'm talking about. But for as of now, we'll discuss the Hindu editorial. So today, the vocabulary I've collected is like, the first word is commonsensical. Commonsensical is like reasonable and sensible. It is just the opposite of nonsensical. So commonsensical means reasonable and sensible. The next word is bubbling. Bubbling means marked by high spirits or excitement. Marked by high spirits or excitement is known as bubbling. Just focus and stay here. We'll discuss the entire passage for today, the part of the editorial related to budget. But what budget has been given by our finance minister, that will be discussed today. Next is entrench. Entrench means to establish an attitude, habit, or belief so firmly that change is very difficult or unlikely. So, if you entrench something, it means that idea or belief or attitude is so firmly established that we cannot change it. Very difficult or unlikely to change. That is known as entrench. So, first word was commonsensical. Next word is bubbling. Third is entrench, which means establish an attitude, belief, or idea that so strongly that so firmly that change is very difficult or unlikely. Shaktivel, yes, good morning, happy good morning. Okay, contraction means the act of decreasing something in size or volume or quantity. So contract means, you understand, contract, to decrease something in size or volume. Next is flagging. It's a new word for you, I know. Flagging means becoming tired or less dynamic, declining in strength. Becoming tired or less dynamic, declining in strength. Next word is pump prime. Pump prime means stimulate activity in an economy by investment. So if you, it's a verb, yeah, remember, it's a verb. Verb. So if the government pumps prime, it means it stimulates an activity in the economy by doing some investment. So if we understand the parts of speech, commonsensical is basically an adjective. Bubbling means it's also an adjective. Entrench is a verb because it says it to establish. Contraction is a noun, and flagging Okay, how do we use flagging? We'll see in the passage because it depends on the use. It's also an adjective. So when we discuss the passage, there we will discuss the parts of speech, how to identify them. And see, this session is not about understanding budget. Please understand this. This session is all about understanding whatever is written form, whatever is in written form, how to understand that and comprehend that. So it can be anything, right? So today we have budget discussion. But I'm not going to discuss budget with you. Please understand this. Not going to discuss budget with you because budget is something which you have already watched, you have already experienced. We are going to discuss the English aspect of it. Clear? Okay. So we have discussed 6 words: commonsensical, bubbling, entrenched, contraction, flagging, and pump prime. So the next words are envisioned. Envision means imagine as a future possibility or visualize. So if you envision something, you imagine it as a future possibility. Imagine it as a future possibility or visualize. So that's the meaning of envision as a verb. But here envision means adjective because any verb in the third form becomes an adjective. Any verb in the third form becomes an adjective, past participle form. Clear? Next is seamless. Seamless means smooth and without seams or obvious joints. Next word is multimodal. Multimodal means characterized by several different modes of activity or occurrence. Characterized by several different modes of activity or occurrence is known as multimodal. So I'll explain this to you. So suppose a new policy is formed by the government and it is said to be multimodal. Means it is characterized by different modes of activity like railways or agriculture or education. So that's a multimodal budget if you see. And seamless means without seams or obvious joints. Okay. Next comes outlay. Outlay or outlays. Outlays is, what is the meaning of outlays? An amount of some money spent on something. Amount of money spent on something is known as outlays. Fiscal means relating to government revenue, especially taxes. So anything which is fiscal is related to government revenue or taxes. And fiscal deficit, you need to understand this. When the government spends more than it earns, it's known as fiscal deficit. So suppose the government earns E and it spends S. So S minus E is fiscal deficit. Understood? Okay. So we have understood envision, imagine as a future possibility, visualize. Seamless means smooth and without seams or obvious joints. Multimodal means characterized by several different modes of activity or occurrence. Outlays means an amount of money spent on something. Fiscal means relating to government revenue, especially taxes. And fiscal deficit means when the government spends more than it earns. So envision is an adjective, seamless is an adjective, multimodal is an adjective, outlays is a noun, fiscal is related to, it's an adjective, fiscal deficit, you understand that? And fiscal deficit is again a noun. It's a situation, right? So it's a noun. We will discuss all these words when we go into the passage also. Fine. Next word is illuminate. It's a verb which says make something visible or bright by shining light on it or light up. So if you make something illuminated, it means it is to make visible or bright by shining it. Next is claustrophobic. It has come from claustrophobia. So claustrophobia means having an extreme or irrational fear of confined places. Claustrophobia. So what's claustrophobia? If you have a phobia of confined spaces, it's known as claustrophobia. And claustrophobic is an adjective. Next is solace. Solace means comfort or consolation in the time of distress or sadness. So if you are very sad and you get some relief during that time of distress or sadness, it's known as solace. Next is address. Address means to speak to a person or an assembly is known as address. Exacerbated. Exacerbated means make a problem or a bad situation worse. So if a situation is there, you make it worse. It's known as exacerbated. Next is plethora, the last word for today. Plethora means a large or excessive amount of something. So plethora is a noun. Exacerbated is an adjective or a verb, depends on the use. Address is a verb or a noun, depends on the use. If it's the address of someone, that's a noun. If address means address this to speak to the assembly, it's known as a verb. Solace is a noun. Comfort or consolation in time of this. Okay, we'll all discuss these words. We'll discuss all these words while we do the passage also. Claustrophobic means having an extreme or irrational fear of confined spaces. And illuminate is a verb which means make something visible or bright by shining light on it. Clear? Next, we have some phrases in the passage. There are some phrases in the passage which we'll discuss now. Tax break. Tax break means a tax concession or advantage allowed by the government, and known as tax break. Yes, Vaishnavi Yogi Dasan. Yes, good morning. Okay. In the wake of. In the wake of means as a consequence of. In the wake of something means as a consequence of something. Current fiscal. Current fiscal means current fiscal year means the fiscal year for which a particular calculation is made. So fiscal is basically financial, but more related to taxes. That's related to government applying taxes or taking taxes from people. That's known as current fiscal or fiscal for that matter. Broad sweep. Broad sweep means taking in or moving over a wide area. If you move over a wide area, that's known as a broad sweep. Crowd in, very important these words are. Crowd in. Crowd in means related to how higher government spending encourages firms to invest more. So if the government crowds in private sector, if the government crowds in private sector, it means it invests more in private sector. And the last phrase is short on details, which means if something or someone or something is short on a particular good quality, they do not have as much of it as you think they should have. Now, so we have discussed all these phrases and words. Now let us move to the passage so that we will be able to apply these words there. So this passage is from the Hindu editorial today. So big on hopes, short on ideas. The title is Big on Hopes, Short on Ideas. You can see this title in the Hindu editorial as well. So we have taken a part of that big editorial and we'll discuss this part. Okay. So the first line says, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's fourth successive budget. So every year budget comes. So it's the fourth successive budget. Succession means one after another. Succession means one after another. So it's the fourth successive budget. While commonsensical in its approach. So in approach it is commonsensical, which means reasonable. It is commonsensical means it is reasonable in its approach. Is not exactly bubbling with. While commonsensical in its approach, it is not exactly bubbling with new ideas. So there are no new ideas related to it. It's not bubbling with. It's not filled with. It's not exciting. It's not exciting with new ideas. Okay. So bubbling means exciting or full of excitement. So the author says that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's fourth successive budget, although it is commonsensical in approach, means reasonable in its approach, but it's not bubbling with new ideas. Okay. With the economy still in search of durable momentum. Okay, this is a phrase, it's a special word, durable momentum. What's durable? Which is consistent. Consistent. Something, if we also say some product is durable, means it is consistently doing good. So if you have a furniture in your house which is durable, means it will last long. It will last long. So with the economy still in search of durable momentum, that could help entrench the recovery from the last fiscal year's record contraction. So what is happening right now? When we say like this, with the economy still in search of durable momentum, it means that the economy is still in search of durable momentum. It is still, the process is going on. We are looking for a durable momentum that could help entrench the recovery from last fiscal year's record contraction. Entrench means to establish an idea which is unlikely to change. So with economy still in search of durable momentum, that could help establish the recovery from last fiscal year's record contraction. Contraction means, fiscal year's record contraction means the reduction in taxes. Reduction in taxes that was received by the government, or the fiscal year's revenue to the government. Okay. So Ms. Sitharaman has missed an opportunity to address the flagging consumer spending in the wake of erosion in real incomes and savings through a combination of tax breaks for the middle class and cash handouts to the poor. Okay, let's understand this. So with the economy still in search of durable momentum that could help entrench the recovery from last year's fiscal year's record contraction, Ms. Sitharaman has missed an opportunity to address the flagging consumer spending. So flagging means what? Declining, decreasing. Consumer spending in the wake of erosion. In the wake means as a consequence of erosion in real income. So the consumer is not getting real income right now. And savings through the combination of tax breaks. So tax breaks means relaxation in tax. So consumer is not getting real incomes and savings through a combination of tax breaks for the middle class and cash handouts for the poor. Cash handouts means giving cash to the poor. So what's the meaning of the entire thing? So it says, with the economy still in search of durable momentum that could help entrench the recovery from the last period record contraction, Ms. Sitharaman has missed an opportunity to address means to speak about the flagging consumer spending in the wake of erosion in real incomes. So flagging means, we have understood the word flagging. Flagging means reduction or declining in something. Consumer spending is declining in the wake of, as a consequence of erosion. Erosion means decrease in real incomes and savings. For whom? For the middle class. Through a combination of tax breaks for the middle class, tax concession for the middle class, and cash handouts for the poor. And even as the minister accepts the role public capital expenditure could play. Okay, so when we say, and even as the minister acknowledges the role public capital expenditure could play in crowding in public investment. So crowding in means to spend or invest in private investment. So when we say that even the Prime Minister acknowledges the role public capital expenditure could play in crowding in private investment. So public capital expenditure has a role in private investment. Even if the minister accepts the fact that role of public capital expenditure has in the crowding in private investment at the time when private investment seems to require that support. So private investment needs that support and help to pump prime demand in the economy. So pump prime means what? Pump prime means pumping the economy with investment. The budget outlay of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account market marks just as a 24.4% increase from the revised estimate of 6.03 lakh crore for the current fiscal. So let us understand this. We'll break in part and understand this. So what is it says? Even as the minister accepts the role public capital expenditure could play in crowding in, means making some investment, crowding in private investment at a time when private investments seem to require that support. Okay, so it is the private investment need that support. Crowding in is required and help to pump prime demand in the economy. Pump prime means what? Investment, huge funding, pumping investment in the economy. The budget outlay of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account marks just a 24.4 increase. Okay, outlay is what? Funding. Outlay of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account market marks just a 24.4 increase from the revised estimate of 6.03 lakh crore for the current fiscal. So the estimate is what? Estimate is 6.03 lakh crore for the current fiscal, and that has been revised from 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account marks. Okay, capital account. To be sure, Ms. Sitharaman's speech highlights the PM Gati Shakti, a transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development. So, to become sure, Ms. Sitharaman's speech highlights the Prime Minister Gati Shakti, a transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development, that is to be powered by 7 engines of roads. 7 engines are what? Roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways and logistic infrastructure. Okay, so what we have learned till now, we'll mark the points over here. We have learned that Ms. Sitharaman has missed an opportunity to address the flagging consumer spending, which is declining. In the wake of means as a consequence of erosion in real incomes and savings. So the consumer spending has flagged, which means reduced in the wake of erosion in real income. So real income has reduced in real income and savings through a combination of tax breaks for the middle class. So there has been some tax breaks for the middle class and cash handouts to the poor. And even as the minister acknowledges the role public capital expenditure could play in crowding in private investment, so there is certain thing that the minister has accepted, the role public expenditure has in crowding in private investment. So public expenditure has to be invested in private investment, and at a time when private investments seem to require that support and help to pump prime demand in the economy. So pump prime means investment, pumping fund, and that's the demand of the economy. The budget outlay of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account marks just a 24.4% increase from the revised estimate of 6.03 lakh crore for the current fiscal. So current fiscal had an estimate of 6.03 lakh crore, but now it is 7.5 lakh crore, and that is 24.4% increase, just a very minimal number. Okay, and there are 7 engines of roads, railways, supports, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways and logistic infrastructure. So let us move ahead and understand. While the broad sweep means what? Covering a large area of public infrastructure envision means having a vision of something, having a future possibility. So while the broad sweep of public infrastructure envisioned by the program could potentially be truly transformative, it means that at one point the broad sweep of public infrastructure sees the possible future as a while the broad sweep of the public infrastructure envisioned by whom? The program could be potentially be truly transformative. It could have been truly bringing about a change if it were to be executed as imagined. So if the program could have been very great if it were to be executed as imagined, the budget is largely short on details where it concerns the specifics and pencils in. What's the meaning of pencil? Pencil does not mean the pencil which we write. So this is the pencil. Pencil is a verb. Pencil is a verb which means designing something. And pencils in some figures only for the roads and railways components. Okay, let's understand this. See, it's a Hindu editorial, so you need to be very patient with me and we'll understand this. Okay. So while the major portion being covered of the public infrastructure is envisioned by the program, could be potentially be truly, it could have been truly transformative, could have brought about a change. If it were to be executed as imagined, the budget is largely short on details. Short on details means it is not covering everything that was expected by us. Where it concerns the specifics and pencils in some figures only for the roads and railway components. So only roads and railway components have been targeted in this budget. The budget lists a master plan for expressways. So the budget has a master plan for expressways that will be formulated in 2022-23 under the scheme and projects the addition of 25,000 kilometers of roads to the national highways network. So 25,000 kilometers of roads will be built in the year 2022 to 23. The talk of enabling seamless means smooth. The talk of means the conversation of, enabling means to make able, to execute, multimodal movement of goods and people, and providing multimodal connectivity between mass urban transit system and railway stations. However, all sound a familiar refrain from past speeches. Okay, see, understand this. The talk of enabling seamless multimodal movement of goods means various departments, various segments, but going on smoothly, movement of goods and people, and providing multimodal connectivity between mass urban transit systems. Mass urban means what? Maximum urban transit system. Transit means movement. And railway stations, however, all sound familiar. Refrain from. What's the meaning of refrain from? Deviation from the past speeches. So it's a deviation from the past speeches that seamless multimodal movement of goods and people will be done, and there will be connectivity between mass urban transit system. So this is a refrain from past speeches. Okay. Spending outlays means funds. Okay. Spending outlays on several other key sectors including healthcare, rural development, and the vital jobs and income, providing National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, have all shrunk as a percentage of overall expenditure in the budget estimates for fiscal 2023 from the revised estimates for the current year, even if some cases only marginally. Okay, let's understand this. Spending outlays means spending funds on several other key sectors, including healthcare, rural development, and the vital jobs and income providing National Rural Employment, have all shrunk, they have all reduced as a percentage of overall expenditure. So as a percentage of overall expenditure by the government, the spending outlays on several other key sectors that include healthcare, rural development, and vital jobs have shrunk as a percent of overall expenditure in the budget estimates for fiscal 2023 from the revised estimates for the current year, even if in some cases only marginally. So what has happened is the overall expenditure in the budget estimates for fiscal 2023 from a revised estimates for the current year, and in some cases only marginally it has happened. Clear? Okay. That these sectors have been forced to bear the impact of the government's keenness to broadly stick to a fiscal consolidation roadmap. So these sectors which we have talked about have been forced to tolerate or bear the impact of the government's keenness, propensity, the keenness to broadly stick to fiscal consolidation roadmap, means only fiscal strengthening roadmap, with the budget projecting a narrowing of fiscal deficit to 6.4% of GDP in 2022-23. It means that these sectors have been forced to bear the impact of the government's keenness to broadly stick to fiscal consolidation roadmap. Fiscal consolidation means strengthening the fiscal, that is the taxes, the collection of revenue from the people, with the budget projecting a narrowing of fiscal deficit. Okay, fiscal deficit means what? When the government spends more than it earns. So the narrowing of fiscal deficit to 6.4% of GDP in 22-23 from a revised estimate for 6.9%. So the revised estimate is 6.9% and the fiscal deficit was what? It was 6.4%. Reflects on its priorities. Government spending on healthcare ought to have instead been significantly increased. So the author says that the government spending on healthcare should have been significantly increased, with the lessons from ongoing pandemic's first two waves. So we have to take lessons from the ongoing pandemic's first two waves, serving to illuminate the need for a sizable enlargement of public health infrastructure. So we need to understand that we need to illuminate the need for sizable enlargement of public health infrastructure because of the COVID pandemic. A source of some solace, though, is the announcement of National Tele Mental Health Program. There's only one relief that we have got, and that relief is National Tele Mental Health Program to address, that will take care of the mental health problems that have been exacerbated, made worse by the claustrophobic lockdowns and plethora of anxieties and triggered by the pandemic. Okay, let us understand this. So right now what I will do is, from the starting I will mark some points and we'll discuss all those points. Okay, let us go back to the passage. It's very hot today. Okay, I'll mark the points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's fourth successive budget, while common sense in its approach, is not exactly bubbling with new ideas. With the economy still in search of durable momentum that could help entrench the recovery from last fiscal contraction, Ms. Sitharaman has missed an opportunity. 1. To address the flagging consumer spending in the wake of erosion in real incomes. Erosion in real incomes and savings through a combination of tax breaks for the middle class and cash handouts for the poor. This is point number 2. I'll discuss every point in detail, don't worry. Even as the minister acknowledges the role public health expenditure is crowding public investment, right? And help to pump and demand the economy, the budget outlay of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital market marks just a 24.4% increase from revised estimate of 6.03 lakh crore for the current fiscal. This is point number 3. I'll discuss each point in detail. Okay, this is 3 points. Now the next 4th point is, while the broad sweep of the public infrastructure envisioned by the program could potentially be true transformative if it is, the budget is largely short on details where it concerns the specific and pencils in the sum of roads and railway component. This is point number 4. The talk of enabling seamless multimodal movement of goods and people and providing multimodal connectivity between mass urban transit systems and railway stations, however, all sound a familiar reference to the past speeches. Okay, this is the 5th point. Spending outlays on several other key factors. I'll discuss all the points. Okay, so key factors including healthcare, rural development and vital jobs, and income point national. This is not a point. Let's go to the next page. The key that these sectors have been forced to bear the impact of government spending. That these sectors have been forced to bear the impact of the government's keenness to broadly stick to fiscal consolidation roadmap, with the budget projecting a narrowing of fiscal deficit to 6.4% from a revised estimate for 6.9, reflects its priorities. This is point number 6. And this is the point number 7. Okay. Now let us focus on some of the highlighted points. Okay. So what the passage says? The passage says that Nirmala Sitharaman's fourth successive budget is commonsensical in approach, but it's not filled with exciting ideas. And the economy is still in search of durable momentum that could establish the recovery from last year's fiscal's record contraction. So there was a fiscal record decrease. So the economy is still in search of consistent momentum that could help establish the recovery from last year's record contraction. Ms. Sitharaman has missed an opportunity to address the flagging consumer spending. So consumer spending has reduced as a consequence of erosion in real incomes and savings through a combination of tax breaks. So through a combination of tax concessions for the middle class and cash handouts for the poor, there has been the reduction in the consumer spending. Fine. And even as the minister acknowledges the role public capital expenditure could play in crowding. So public capital expenditure has a very big role to play in funding the private investment so that it develops. So crowding in means funding in money to develop a particular part of the economy. So, and even if the minister accepts the role public capital expenditure could play in funding the private investment at a time when private investment seems to require that support. So right now, private investment needs that support from public capital expenditure. Understood? And help to pump prime demand in the economy. Pump prime means funding and investment is pump prime. Okay, it's a verb. Pump prime demand in the economy. The budget outlay of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account. The funding of 7.5 lakh crore for the capital account Capital account has 7.5 lakh crore, marks just a 24.4% increase from the revised estimate of 6.03 lakh crore for the current fiscal. So current fiscal is what? 6.03%. So it's a just 24.4% increase for the revised estimate. To be sure, Miss Sitaram, so this is current fiscal amount. 6.03 is the current fiscal. But for the future, it is estimated to be 7.5 lakh crores. Okay, now, to be sure, Miss Sitaraman's speech highlights the PM's Gati Shakti, a transformative approach. Transformative means changing approach for economy growth and sustainable development. That is to be powered by 7 engines of roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways and logistic infrastructure. Now moving ahead. While the broad sweep of the public infrastructure, broad sweep means covering a larger area of the public infrastructure envision means projected by the program could potentially be truly transformative. It could be truly transformative only if it were to be executed as imagined. It could have been really be transformative if it could be executed as imagined. The budget is largely short on details. Short on details means it does not fit to our expectation, where it concerns the specifics. It only focuses on specifics and pencils in some figures. Pencils means writes some figures only for roads and railway components. It writes only about roads and railway components. It carries concerns only about roads and railway components. The budget lists a master plan for expressways that will be formulated in 22-23 under the scheme and projects of the addition of 25,000 kilometers of roads. So 25,000 kilometers of roads will be added to national highways network. The talk of enabling seamless multimodal movement of goods and people, the conversation about enabling means to make able. Seamless means smooth. Multimodal movement of goods and people and providing multimodal connectivity between mass urban transit system. So what is mass urban transit system? That enables the masses from the urban areas movement and railway stations. However, all sound a familiar refrain from past speeches. So whatever past speeches were there, refrain means avoiding those past speeches. Well, spending outlays on several other key sectors, like spending outlays for funding on several other key sectors including healthcare, rural development and vital jobs and income, providing National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, have all shrunk. These areas have shrunk as a percentage of overall expenditure in the budget estimates for fiscal 2023 from the revised estimates for the current year, even if in some cases only marginally. So what does it say? Let us understand this clearly. It's a very important part of the passage. So spending outlays on several other key sectors including healthcare, rural development and vital jobs and income providing national Manrega have all shrunk as a percentage of overall expenditure. So overall expenditure is suppose X. So the spending on several other key sectors like healthcare, rural development, vital jobs and Manrega, they have shrunk as a percentage of overall expenditure in the budget estimates for fiscal 2023 from the revised estimates for the current year, even if some cases only marginally. In some cases, it has been marginal, not substantial. Next, that these sectors have been forced to bear the impact of the government's keenness to broadly stick to a fiscal consolidation roadmap. It means that these sectors like rural development or healthcare or Manrega for that matter, rural employment guarantee schemes, these sectors have been forced to bear the impact of government's keenness to broadly stick to a fiscal consolidation roadmap. Fiscal means only financial related to taxes. Roadmap means what? Roadmap means a planning for future. With the budget projecting a narrowing of the fiscal deficit, with the budget projecting a narrowing means shrinking of the fiscal deficit. What's fiscal deficit? When the government spending is more than its earning to 6.4% of GDP. So in 2022 to 23, they have planned, the minister has planned that there will be a fiscal deficit to 6.4% from a revised estimate for 6.9%. So there was a revised estimate of 6.9%, but now it has been reduced to 6.4%. Reflects on its priorities. What's the priorities? Fiscal deficit reduction. So government spending on healthcare ought to have instead been significantly increased. So the author says that the government should have increased the investment on healthcare with the lessons from ongoing pandemic's first two waves. So there have been some lessons from ongoing pandemic, like investment in the healthcare should have been increased. And pandemic's first two waves have illuminated us with the need for a sizable enlargement of the public health infrastructure, which has not been done. A source of some relief, solace means relief, a source of some relief is the announcement of National Tele-Mental Health Program. Tele-Mental Health Program, what does it say? To address the mental health problems that have been exacerbated, that have been made worse by the claustrophobic lockdowns, means confined in one spaces, and plethora of anxieties triggered by the pandemic. Now, let us note down what the points we have learned. Point number one, what we have learned is the government has focused on connectivity as per the passage. Number two, healthcare, rural development, employment guarantee scheme have not been highlighted, not been taken care of. Number three, healthcare, rural development and employment guarantee schemes. Connectivity issues, like connectivity means the connection of highways and all. Like 25,000 kilometers has been added to the highways. Okay. Next, what we have learned? We have learned from the passage I am saying, because I have taken a part of the passage. Okay. What else we have learned? At the last we have learned that the telehealth that has been increased because of the claustrophobic status of people. Fourth number, what we have learned from the passage. See, from the passage we have learned that National Telehealth Health Program, which I said, then fiscal deficit. Okay. Fiscal deficit has been tried to reduce because the government spending is more than its earning. So fiscal deficit of the GDP 6.4%, that has been taken care of. Financials have been taken care of. Financials. Reduction in fiscal deficit. So we have learned 4 points. Then the fifth point is railway components, roads and all. Healthcare we have discussed. Okay, yes. Consumer spending. consumer spending, it's flagging, so cash handouts and tax breaks. So these are the 5 points we have learned in the passage today. The government has focused on connectivity with railways and roadways being connected. Healthcare, rural development and employment guarantee scheme has not been taken care of. Telehealth system has been enhanced because of the claustrophobic status of the people after the two waves of COVID. Fiscal deficit has been taken care of out of the GDP 6.4% from initial of 6.9%, and consumer spending has been taken care of because the consumer spending is flagging. So tax breaks and cash handouts to the poor has been initiated. So this is what we have learned today in the passage. So students, with this I like to end the session for today. We'll catch up tomorrow again at the same time, 8 a.m. in the morning, and 11 a.m. session is very important because we're going to discuss the common errors, error spotting. With this I like to end the session. Thank you so much.